We'll send it to you in an email, Jerry.
It's a beautiful shot.
All right.
Okay, Tyler, a little test. Where is this observatory? I just told you.
It's in Chile.
Where?
Oh, crap. crap. You had to ask me when in the middle I was talking to Jerry about a guide log. Northern part of Chile for 200, Bob.
For 200, you can Google it and see what.
I could. Good.
The VLT.
I'm pretty sure that's not
They
it.
got the real Milky Way down there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's crazy. It is in northern part of Chile. I'm amazing. Well, the very large. I like how it's called the Very Large Telescope. Operative at European South Observatory on Cerrillo Perno in the Atacama Desert in the northern part of Chile.
Clear all the time.
I'll take my 200, Bob, and go home. The primary mirror is 8.2 meters across.
Sending TP your way.
That is insane. 8.2 meters across.
Yeah, those mirrors are made in the mirror lab in Arizona State University. I've been there.
That is insane.
They're huge mirrors.
That's a big mirror.
Yeah, they make a bunch of them. It should be 8. I thought it was 8.4 meters. 8.2.
The Google is never wrong, Jerry. Google is never wrong.
No, I'm sure that's right. I'm sure 8.2 is right. But they make a bunch of those mirrors at the mirror lab in the University of Arizona.
Insane.
It's inspiring. Makes me want to go down there.
I'll live vicariously through you.
It takes years to make the mirror.
I would assume it does.
They melt it down. They melt it down and they spin cast it to get the curvature, and then they polish it.
I bet polishing is a pain. I wonder what wave it is, being an 8.2 meter.
That's with the money they spend, it's near perfect.
Well, what's near perfect? What wave is it?
At least I wouldn't know. I don't.
16th wave?
I would speculate it'd probably be greater than 20th wave. That's just my speculation. I don't know. It could be 50th or 100th, or it could be 10. Who knows?
That's insane. Still.
10 waves.
10th wave? Man.
Well, the thing about it is they're only going to grind it to where it's good enough. They're not going to go any further past than that.
There's no reason to.
There's no reason to, right? Exactly.
Excuse me. That is a pretty darn good shot.
Isn't it?
Yeah. That is pretty. The only problem, not really the problem I have, is I wish it would have the more hydrogen alpha. That way you can see all the nebulae that's within there. Like the North American Nebula, the Heart and Soul Nebula, the M16, you know.
Plane ticket.
Do what? Get you a plane ticket? Are you paying for it?
I just want you to, I'm trying to show you how to solve your own problems, Byron.
I don't have problems, Scott.
Okay.
It's just money that's the problem. It's always about money.
Okay.
TV supply ship burns up in the atmosphere over a remote part of the Pacific Ocean. This re-entry was carefully planned and controlled. It's the unpredictable damage that space debris could do to orbiting spacecraft that's now a major cause for concern. Space debris can be anything from the spent upper stage of a rocket and a disused satellite to an astronaut glove or fleck of paint. There are over 129 million objects estimated to be in orbit that are larger than a millimetre, and even a coin-sized piece of debris travelling at up to 56,000 kilometres per hour will rip through a satellite faster than a bullet with destructive...
The audio on the video is not very loud.
Known encounters between active satellites and space debris. An example of such an event happened in 2009, where we had a collision between an active telecommunications satellite, Iridium, with an inactive space debris satellite, Cosmos. So this collision actually resulted in thousands of fragments, and many of them are still in orbit.
Orbiting fragments can potentially hit other objects, producing more fragments and more collisions, a dangerous chain reaction known as the Kessler effect. Suggested technologies for removing space debris have so far included everything from harpoons and nets to robotic arms. Nothing is off the table. ESA has also commissioned Clear Space 1 for 2025. It'll be the first mission to actively remove a piece of space junk in the form of a Vega launch adapter.
Nobody has ever removed a space debris, and it's a very challenging mission. So first thing is proving that it can be done. And that's what we are planning to do with the Clear Space 1 mission in ESA. Then the scientists are unanimous. What you need to do is to remove the big object from the most populated orbit. Why? Because those are the objects which have a higher risk of collision and which will create a cloud of smaller debris.
More than 6,000 satellites currently orbit Earth. Around half of these are no longer working, while many of the active satellites are essential for our modern world, be it telecommunications, weather updates, the internet, and GPS. If damaged or destroyed, the impact on society would be huge.
We know that space debris is a global problem and that calls for global collaboration. And this collaboration is done, of course, in the scientific areas, but also among agencies. And one example is the Interagency Debris Coordination Committee, IADC, where the major space agencies work together on defining the appropriate space debris mitigation technologies, forecasting the evolution of the environment, and also exchanging data and information.
ESA, a founding member and one of 13 space agencies on the committee, is also hosting the upcoming virtual European Conference on Space Debris from its site in Darmstadt, Germany. Scientists, engineers and industry will discuss the best ways to approach the problem and how to make space more sustainable. Agencies are currently tracking 28,000 space debris objects, and ESA is also developing laser tracking technology and AI-supported automated collision avoidance systems to reduce the number of false alerts for potential collisions. The aim, however, is to act now and tackle space debris before it's too late.
Well, hello everybody. This is Scott Roberts from Explore Scientific, adjusting my camera. Today we have with us Jerry Hubbell and Tyler Bowman, and we've got a great show for you today. Jerry's going to do some demonstrations and give some methods on how to use the new Universal Firmware Updating tool. And Tyler's going to be talking about a new astrophotography contest. So
Yay.
Oh, good.
I think we'll let Tyler go first. And
Yeah, I know. You
Yep.
saved the best for last. I get it.
The most boring for last, because then people can tune out.
No, I don't want to hear about
going on
it.
after
No.
Jerry's like going on after the Beatles.
No, Jerry's
That's right.
information is very vital for what's going on within our community as far as the groups IO and the mounts. It's very precedent that if you have one of our mounts, that you pay attention, that we make sure that we get all the information across that you need to make sure that you understand how vital this is, that we take care of you as a customer. But again, if you have any problems with any of the mounts you have an issue with, don't hesitate to get a hold of me at tyler@explorescientific.com or Scott or Jerry, which they'll just direct it to me regardless. So anyway, next astrophotography contest is cell phone related. Ooh, pretty. Yay. It's going to be 2 months long, folks. We're going to actually have we're getting the preliminary set up. It's going to be go live and active as far as tomorrow. So we're going to keep it 2 months long. So please make sure that you guys, if you can, participate. Because we want to see what you. Yeah, there's no gear restrictions.
Who doesn't have a smartphone, right?
Exactly.
So,
There's no gear restrictions at all.
no gear restrictions. You
None.
can shoot without a telescope, with a
Yep.
telescope,
Correct.
any telescope.
Correct.
So
And we'll prod everybody at least once a week to remind them that the contest is going on also.
So basically, that tells me that I have to be on the show once a week.
that's right.
But other than that, Scott, everything else in the CSR world is going pretty well. But I know we have more pressing issues as far as Jerry, so I won't take up any more of y'all's wonderful time and release it to Jerry.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tyler.
You're welcome.
Who's on the program today? Let's do that first.
Well, let's do that first. Okay. So let's see. Now I left the chat on. I didn't know that you could do this, but if you can leave the chat on and people can still chat from like yesterday. Okay.
Oh, really?
So I left it on there. But looks like Pekka is on, and Mike Wiesner, of course. He says, here we go again. Cameron Gillis. We've got Harold Locke. Good afternoon. Sending, I already read it, TP your way. You know, people aren't buying TP like they used to, you know, so that's a sign that maybe we're hitting at the end of this very long COVID tunnel here.
Yeah, everybody's stocked up already. They've already got a year's worth. So
I
now,
can't even get in the house. There's just toilet
right.
paper everywhere, right? Cameron Gillis says, great to see and hear Scott. And hear Scott, that's right. And I did with the help of Richard Gray, so I'm going to give him a big shout out. Okay, thank you, Richard, for fixing my my sound problems here. And of course, Jerry Hubbell. Paola Scarbosa says hello, everybody. And Jeff Weiss is on. And Mike Wiesner says the UA Mirror Lab is incredible. Yes, it is. Due to the pandemic, we actually were going to have the Arizona Dark Sky Star Party. That had to get canceled. But tagged along with that Star Party, we had reservations to go tour the mirror making lab at the University of Arizona. And so we will, when we revive that, and we will for 2022, we'll try to get back in there. Cameron Gillis says, galaxies are everywhere. Been awesome, moonless, clear skies here in the Pacific Northwest. That's awesome. Beatrice Hines is on. Hello, everybody. Chuck Starr, he says hello. Chuck, some of these people are going to be on the Global Star Party, which I'll talk about here in a second. Pekka wants to know if anybody has made an aero map of telescopes, one for refractor and one for reflector. An aero map. You mean like a light path type of map?
ray trace type thing?
Not sure. But if you're asking that question, the short answer is yes. There's lots of them. Cameron says, doing my spring sky survey of galaxies down to 12th magnitude and logging hundreds of galaxies. That's awesome, dude. Chalkstaw says that's an indirect way of asking for a pay raise. He's listening to Tyler there. Right.
He's overpaid.
Yeah. Oh.
No, he's not. Yeah, absolutely is not.
Ollie Crabtree says, hello. George looks like the 40 looks like the ocean of space or something. Martin Eastburn, space debris is one of the reasons why this side of the moon has fewer holes, while the back side is full of holes. The Earth protects the moon, takes the hit with massive gravity it has versus the moon. Beatrice Hines is saying hello. Richard Grace is on. He says, oh, yeah. And Mike Wiesner is looking forward to seeing what everyone does with their smartphone. That's right. We're looking forward to seeing what you're doing with it too, Mike. Martin Eastburn. Yeah, here comes Jerry. Martin says he's going to use his older version of G4 if the rain goes away. All right. And Harold Locke says it's great to have you back, Jerry. And
great to be back.
Yeah.
It's better than the
Richard
alternative.
Gray says, thank you for the envelope. I got it today. So cool. What Richard doesn't know is it's just an envelope. Just kidding. I put something special in there for him. Pekka says, moving the right direction. I get crazy when I want to slew. Always get the wrong buttons.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an explanation for that, and we've had some discussion about fixing the problem. And the problem is that it's basically when you're on an equatorial mount, that depending on which side of the meridian you are on, the telescope's flipped over one way or the other, right? So that means the directions are opposite, left and right. When you look at it as left, right, up, down, that's when you're thinking in normal altitude azimuth mode, but it's really not that mode. So that's why the buttons, whenever you call a left button a right button or a right button a left button, it's going to be wrong on the other side of the meridian. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Now, the only fix to this, and we've talked about it, I'm not sure how easy or how effective it would be, is that you'd have to dynamically change the label on the button depending on which side of the meridian you're on. And up and down would be opposite, and left and right would be opposite. So, but the problem is, then you get confused if you're looking at the buttons to understand which way to move them out. It'll be different every time you try, because that's the nature of the beast. You'll be thinking it's one way, and then you'll hit it and you say, oh, left. That left means this way. Okay, I'll hit it.
You know what I used to do? I just used to turn my stuff around, okay, so that if I was pushing up or pushing down, it would go up or down.
Right. Well, the real answer is that, this is the logical, common sense answer is if you push a button that goes the wrong way, push the other one. And then you're good to go.
Make sure the speed's turned down, right?
Yeah, just make sure this,
Like
set the speed. But even then, the Explore Stars app ramps it up and down. It's not like it's going to take off at full speed. So
that's true.
So that's just the answer.
The whole mount around.
Yeah.
Or the whole planet, for that matter. So
that's right. Move to Australia, and then the buttons will be correct.
That's the easy fix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry to say that. There's no real easy workaround other than just to try it, and if it's wrong, then do the other button.
Right. Well, so you're gonna show you're gonna demonstrate.
Yeah. So just to give some context to this demonstration, I finally released the new firmware for the PMC-8 that Wes McDonald and I have been working on for the past 6 months. And it was a little bit later than I expected, not the least of which because of my COVID. But we had about a month and a half period for beta testing, which was good. And we actually found, even with that period, we got a lot of good things fixed and changed, but based on that testing. But even then, right after I released it on Monday, I think it was, I posted it and made a message on the forum. 2 hours later, somebody identified an issue. That was a real simple, quick fix. And it was related to the Indy driver, the way the Indy driver does something.
Yeah.
Okay. The way that the Indy testers were using the system, it identified this issue, which isn't a normal way. And it has to deal with the way that so for example, the right ascension axis continuously tracks. Okay. And we had a timing value that was too short. So the way the Indy driver works is it sends out a command to get the position. And the timing was so short that it was basically timing out and then immediately going again when it got the next command. Okay.
I see.
And the problem is when it timed out, it stopped the mount and then it would start immediately. So you had this little bit of jitter or this noise.
Oh, I see.
So it was sitting there jerking. It was stopping and starting, stop, start, stop, start. You know, that's what it was doing. So we fixed it on the right ascension axis. Okay.
How about the declination axis?
That's what and the Indy guys found it because they were getting the same timeout issue and said, we fixed that.
Yeah. Right.
So that's all that was.
I see.
So it was a very minor thing. And since you don't track on deck, the ASCOM driver didn't see it, you know, nothing else saw it. So, but these Indy guys found it for us. So we congratulate, you know, we thank them for that.
Yeah.
So I released it on Monday. And I'm going to go walk through the release kit and the configuration of the system with the new.
I want to say something before you get started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in all my years of being in this industry, and I say all my years, since GOTO technology existed for amateur astronomy, and I got to be on the very beginning of this. You know, I saw the very first GOTO system, which was actually provided by Vixen in the early 1980s. Okay, the original, it was called the Sky Sensor. There has never been you never got on. Maybe there was some spontaneous thing where, you know, the engineer got up before an audience and talked about the system. Okay, you never got regular updates, you know, from the vice president of engineering. Okay. So, you know, my hat's off to Jerry for doing that. My hat's also off to him for he's a great astronomer. He loves it, you know, and, you know, he's very gifted in what he does. And so, you know, I'm for one feeling very, you know, I feel very fortunate that we have him working with us. And, you know, I know that for all of you out there that have PMC-8 systems or are just generally interested in some of the things that Jerry does, you know, I'm sure that you know that of course you're here watching, right. So we're all happy that you're here, Jerry.
Well, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. And this started quite a few years ago when you brought the opportunity to me to do this work, and that was it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for me, you know. So I really appreciate that, and it's turned out pretty well for us. I know we've had some bumps in the road, but still, overall, I think it's worked good.
Yep. Yeah, and it's still going on with this new firmware update. I mean, all of you that have PMC-8s, you're basically getting a brand new product, you know, by the time you update it. So
yes. And I was struggling. I was talking to Scott about it the other day, talking about the upgrade. And we're about to the point where it's not perfect, but there's not a whole lot within the scope of the operation of the PMC-8 that there's going to be any more improvements unless customers come up with something that is really a groundbreaking feature, you know, that we need to add. That's brand new, you know. It does more than what most systems do, I would say. And it's we could always improve the user experience. That's the only thing that we can probably work on.
That's right.
But as far as features and functions and the performance of the system, I think it's pretty much where it's going to be for a while. I mean, the other versions of the firmware lasted quite a few years, so I'm not going to say this firmware version is going to last for 5 years, but it very well could. I mean, there is one other thing we're going to add to it. I won't divulge it here, but there is one more upgrade that we're going to do probably this year. That's going to be on the firmware, but after that, it's going to be pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it'll be left up to the imagination of the OpenGOTO community, and
Right.
and us to implement things that can make user interface more seamless. So
I want to also thank Wes McDonald for the work he's done with me on this over the last 6 months. He's been tireless and relentless, weeding out things, and he's really been an excellent advocate for the user experience and the user base. So I want to thank him for that.
And we want to thank, definitely want to thank everyone in the OpenGOTO community. So
yeah, all our beta testers helped a lot.
Yeah, it's been awesome. So, and we're just getting started. So
yeah, that's right. This is a young machine. I mean, it's not like it's been around for 20 years like some of these other systems.
That's right.
So, all right. So let me get to it. I'm going to. All right. So I posted this release on the forum. So if you want to get the firmware installation kit, which not only includes the firmware, but also the new ASCOM driver and the new configuration tool, which I'll go over. You'll go to the forum, and you'll go to the main page, which is what this one I'm showing here, main. And you'll go to the file section. And then under the file section at the bottom here, you'll see PMC-Eight 20A01 firmware installation kit. And that's the new version code. It's 20A01. All right. And then you'll hit that and download it. Okay. And I've already done that. So I'm going to, let me just do it again. It only takes a second. So you see down here where it's downloading it and it's checking the virus, checking for virus. And I wanted to download it because I wanted to make sure I got the very latest one off the website that I posted to show you guys. So now I can open it down here. And this is the Edge browser that I'm using. You can use Chrome or any other browser. So when you open the zip file, these are the files you'll see. And I don't know if it's large enough to see. I don't know if there's a way for me to zoom in to make it easier. But basically, you'll have the EEPROM file. You'll have the ESPMC8 setup executable, which is the ASCOM driver, okay, installation. You'll have another executable, which is actually the configuration tool that we're talking about, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then there's a document, which is the features document, okay, which, let me see. Let me bring that up. Oops. Come on. All right, which is this document here. All right, so that's that document, and it talks about, it's got a quick start guide at the beginning here. Gives a little description. It has a quick start installation guide, which is basically what I'm going to be showing here. It's got a link to the installation kit and also to the configuration manager. Today I just discovered just as a note, I discovered a problem with the beta version of the configuration manager. Okay, so I would suggest everyone, if you haven't done it yet and you're going to do this after you watch this video, do not use the 104 beta. It installs the firmware on the PMC-8 in the RAM area of the system, but not in the EEPROM. So as soon as you reboot it, the RAM gets wiped and it loads up what's in the EEPROM previously. So that's not good. So do not use this configuration manager version 104 beta. Just use the 103. All right. So I want to make that clear. So that's the document you'll download and follow these instructions that I'm going to go through now and show you. So you'll unzip that. You'll basically unzip that directory into wherever you want. It could stay in the download directory. It doesn't matter. You'll click on the executable for the configuration manager when we get to it, and you'll click on the not the configuration manager, for the configuration tool, the Universal Firmware Configuration Tool. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So the first thing you want to do after you've downloaded that is you want to load the firmware onto the system, and you can use this right here, the 103 version of the PMC-Eight configuration manager that's been out there for a while, for a couple of years, that Chris Moses created. All right. And you'll go to the firmware tab. Okay. All right. And I uploaded the universal firmware is available. So when you hit download, the first button in the firmware tab, it will go out and download the zip file and show you all the different EEPROM code that's for the different mounts. Okay. As you can see, all the previous versions of the code, the 1917, 1918, were specific to each mount. Okay. And this is the first feature that I want to talk about that's great for this, is for the user. There's only one version currently. There's only going to be one version of firmware for all the different mounts. Currently, it's 20A01. Okay. So it doesn't matter what mount you currently have. This is all backward compatible for your mounts systems. And it's going to be forward compatible for all our new systems that we're selling this year. Everything is going to be great that way. So what you do is you highlight the 20A01 EEPROM. And before you do that, before you do anything with that, if you hit the view README, okay, this is a text file that shows you, that's basically a basic version of that other file that shows you quickly what's involved with this upgrade. Okay. So it tells you this was released on April 12th. It's a 20A01.EEPROM file. These are notes about the system, and then this is the features that were added. Always on Wi-Fi and serial port communications, system hardware features detection, updated system status, enhanced pointing capability, all kinds of stuff that are neat to have. So that's in the README file. Okay. So you can see that when you hit the view README button on the configuration manager. The next thing you're going to do after you review that, if you wish, then you're going to hit the 20A01 EEPROM file, and you're going to hit flash selected. Okay, it's going to come up with a warning to warn you that this is going to happen. You need to have your PMC-Eight plugged in. Okay, I want to make sure mine is. So right before we do this, I want to boot my system up and show you what version is on my current PMC-Eight system. Okay, and I'm going to actually clear this. I'm going to reboot it again, so it'll bring up the splash screen. Okay, and I'll show you that this is the previous version of the firmware, so I'm not cheating. Okay, in terms of upgrading, this is an actual
cooking shows where they mix
yeah
everything and then stick in the stove, and then they pull out a perfectly cooked.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This thing will be perfectly broken if it doesn't work for me on this live demonstration. So you can see that right now I've got the 1917A loaded on here, which is for the G11, and it's from June of 2020. All right. And it's got the old style splash screen. All right. So I'm going to clear that, disable this terminal because it will block the operation of the upgrade if it's not disabled. So I'll move that off to the side. So now I'm going to upgrade this firmware, and I'm going to hit OK. And it says it might take a few moments. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to use the propeller firmware load program, and it's loading the RAM, and then it's programming the EEPROM. This is where the other version of the configuration manager broke. All right, that's it. And we get a success message here. Okay. So basically, real quickly, all this program does is it checks the connection, sees where the propeller chip is, and then it finds it on COM6 on my system. It loads the RAM, verifies the RAM, programs the EEPROM, and verifies the EEPROM, just like we saw, and then successful finish. So that's done. All right. So now what I'm going to do is run the configuration tool. All right. I think I've already got it running here. And this is it. So what you would do in the zip file, you'll see this configuration tool executable, and that's a standalone executable. That means you can copy that executable file over to your desktop or wherever you want to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to create a shortcut to it, you can. But if you just click on that file by itself, there's no installation, there's no nothing. It just pops up
and it's
just opens up and runs.
Oh,
right.
cool.
It's very simple.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's good. One thing to note when you get the development kit is the release version down here at the bottom. The current release version for this tool is version 1 dated 2021-04-10 down here. You see that at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's going to be one piece of information you need to know. Okay. And that's what COM port you have your system on. Okay. You have to select that. And then what I'm going to do is this should work right out of the box after you've updated the firmware. I'm going to go ahead and reboot my PMC-8 first. Okay. So I'm powering it off and then I'm powering it back up. You have to give it a few seconds. That's one thing also, when you try to communicate with the PMC-8 and you just restarted it, you've got to give it a few seconds to boot and to get into the run mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're connecting to an ASCOM driver. When you're connecting to it with anything, you have to wait for it to finish booting. Otherwise, you'll have this error message. The ASCOM driver will give you an error message, or you'll see a please wait or something. You know, that's important to wait for it to finish booting. So now I've got it booted up again, and I'm going to hit Get Current Configuration. Okay. So now it goes out and runs that command and comes up back with this fancy string that's a long series of digits. And those digits get decoded into the current configuration for the system. And it filled out this data here. Okay. And the baud rate tells you that. It tells you what type of ST4 port you have. And since this is a G11 big box system, it's got the analog ST4 port. And it tells you what Wi-Fi type it is. It's an RN131. All right. And it also detected what the mount type is. That's the P9 value. Okay, that we'll talk about here in a minute. So it went out and found the device and got the current configuration. And I'm going to reboot it now, and then it'll show the new splash screen on the reboot from the new firmware. And there it is. You can see it looks different than the previous one. So it comes up and tells you it's rebooting, sends the ESB command, and then it comes back and says, okay, I'm started up. And this shows you all the parameters also. This is another way of looking at the parameters that are in your system along with this simple user interface way of looking at it. It tells you what the Wi-Fi protocol is set to, what the channel number is for your Wi-Fi module, whether continuous track mode is on or off, whether it's run on boot.
how many minutes you have left on your phone.
Yeah, how many minutes you have left on your phone, the battery, the temperature, you know, it might have some, how much, that's some of the improvements we'll probably do in the future
It's a
with
lot of
new
information about your
with new hardware, but this is all the
I mean, it's like
configuration.
diagnostic right there.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we're going to rely on the customer in the future to send us.
So
If he doesn't have any idea what his system looks like, you know,
right.
he'll be able to use this simple tool. And the nice thing about this also is I've got this little button down here at the bottom to clear text and to save text. So if you hit save text, it'll come up and let you save it with the file name, any file you want. So this is, you could call it PMC-Eight config 1 boot or something like that, right? And then it saves it, and then you hit save. And it just creates a text file that looks identical to the terminal window. Anytime you want, you can hit that save text. So now it read the configuration, and now it's got this on the left-hand side is the interface that tells you what's going on with your system. So you've got all of these checkboxes telling you whether these things are enabled or not. Track on loss of comms, run on boot. And I'm going to leave it up to the customer to read the file to understand what each of these features are. We've talked about them before, but I want to just get through this installation and show people how to do this. So you got, you know, the sidereal rate fractions, the the motor currents that you can set, and the Wi-Fi channel you can set. The nice thing is too is that one of the features on the motor currents is that we're limiting them so that the customer cannot set them outside of our limiting conditions for operation for the motors. We don't want you to blow up your motor or your system. So each mount type has its own current limits. And I hit that button, show motor current limits, and it printed out this. The G11 current limits are 600 milliamps up to 1300 milliamps. Okay, so you can set these two values anywhere between those two ranges. And the reason you want to set these, you may want to save more battery, or you don't care, you're plugged in at the observatory and the AC power, and you just want to boost the torque on the system to get you over. If you're having a slight problem with the torque, with the motor's not the mesh is screwing up and it's hanging up somehow, you can boost the current to get over that hump until you can correct the alignment on your worm mesh. So that's what that's for. So that's good. So now let's say we want to enable track on loss of comms, which basically if you disconnect the mount from the host computer, it will continue to track. So we want to turn that on. So we'll check that box. Let's say we want to take the thing out under the stars without any computer at all, and we just want to turn it on and point our telescope manually to any object. That's what the run on boot enable is for. So we'll turn that on. And we've got it set for Northern Hemisphere. And so let's go with that. And so what you'll do is once you make that change, you'll sit there and hit set new configuration. All right. And it'll sit there and crank on it. It's got to reset some things. It's got to even if you don't change anything on the Wi-Fi module, it will restart the Wi-Fi module from scratch. And let's cross our fingers that it finally comes back here. And there it is. It came back finally. And it always comes back with this string, the configuration string.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, you can see up here at the top, this green, it says updated configuration. So that's what happens when you hit the set new configuration. It tells you it's updated now.
Cool.
Now, do we know it's really been updated? And yeah, we assume it is. But now what we can do is we can hit get current configuration again. And that goes out and checks it to make sure those changes were put into the system. And it came back and yep, there it is right there. And if you look, nothing changed. It's the correct configuration. And if you compare these numbers here, you would see that they're the same also. That tells you that configuration actually took, right? So that's all there is to updating your firmware, okay?
Awesome.
So now we've got the next thing we want to do is update the ASCOM driver, all right? So let me bring up that when we saved the in the dagnabbit.
Dagnabbit?
I think I got the wrong directory, but this one will work. So when you download that zip file, you'll have this file called ESPMC-Eight setup executable. Okay. And if you hover over it, you see that it says PMC-Eight ASCOM driver. That might be too small for you to see on the screen. So I'm going to double click on that.
Somebody's asking a question. How do you change from Wi-Fi to serial?
Oh, that's a nice feature here, right? You don't have to anymore. They're both operate at the same time.
So you just plug in the cable and it works, right?
That works. That's right. It plugs it. You plug it. You connect to the Explore Stars. You can connect to Explore Stars, and it works.
Right.
Or you can connect the cable up to the serial port for ASCOM, and it works. There's nothing to switch. That was the first driver for this change. All right, so I just started the ASCOM driver setup program, and it'll give you information about the open source license, and then I say I accept the agreement and hit next, and then it'll come up with your user information. You'll hit next, and if you're interested in looking at the source files, you'll go ahead and check that box, install the source files. It's an open source project, this ASCOM driver is, so it's available for everybody to look at. And then you'll hit next. And then, okay, it's ready to install, and you'll hit install. And what it will do, it will remove the previous ASCOM driver that you have installed on the system. So you hit OK. It's uninstalling. And now it's extracting and finishing the installation. So it's just that quick. You can look at the new reference manual. I'm working on changing that, so I won't show you that today, but you can look at, I have made some changes to the one that's attached to this, but it's not complete yet. That's still in kind of somewhat draft mode, so I'm gonna be releasing that here before too long. So we're not gonna look at that today. I'll uncheck that and we'll hit finish. All right. So now I'm gonna use a program that's part of the ASCOM installation called the Profile Explorer. Okay. And if you run the ASCOM driver and it has a hiccup or doesn't like it or bombs out or something, there may be something you need to do with this program. You can find this program. I'm going to bring it up here. If you scroll through your list of programs and you go to the ASCOM platform, okay, right, on your system, and you scroll down to down here to the Profile Explorer right here. That's how you start this program. All right, and then what you'll do is it'll start up like this, and you say, okay, I want to look at what drivers are installed, and then you won't have near as many as I have on here, but you'll select the ASCOM PMC-Eight telescope right here. Okay, and then it'll have it up here. Then you'll hit the little chevron button. Well, that's interesting. So what I showed you before was what I had up earlier. So this is good because this is what should happen if you were to go to here and you've just installed the driver. It hasn't created this record yet, so it's not there yet. So now, if it still shows the old driver, that's what I was going to demonstrate. You're going to have to you're going to basically have to delete this thing. Okay. So let me go ahead and I hope this works. This is kind of on the fly. Let me delete the driver in the profile. Okay, so now there is no PMC-8 listed there. Okay, this might be the way it comes up on your machine, or it might come up. It should come up this way where it's deleted. It might come up where it still has the old information. Okay, and that's where you're going to have to delete it. But let's just assume it's like this. And where's the driver set up at? I need to find it. It's so to get there, I'm gonna open up Path, all right, to bring up the driver setup. And Path is also listed here under ASCOM platform. And when you install the platform, you have to select the path to load, but it's going to show up here, path scope dome hub. And that's what I suggest everybody use to connect their ASCOM clients to the driver. So I'm going to do a setup, and I'm going to choose a telescope. Okay. And so I'm going to go down here and I'm going to choose I may have screwed this up by deleting that. It should show up in the list. I may have to run the install again for it to register itself. Let me do that. So if you did delete it, you should do it before you install the new one, instead of after, like I just did. So I'm just going to run the install again, and it will create that record. It's just it's configured to the default settings. Okay.
Hey, Jerry, a question. Jocks wants to know: does the Wi-Fi run at 5 gigahertz?
No, it's just a 2.5 gigahertz Wi-Fi module.
Any reason to go to a 5 gigahertz?
Well, that's a totally another module. That's something that the modules I've seen, the least expensive ones, are pretty much, most of them, I would say, use 2.5 gigahertz as an Internet of Things device, which is kind of what this is.
I see.
All right, the 5 gigahertz really gives you a lot more bandwidth in terms of not just the number of channels, and that's the main thing. You got more channels to configure your system on.
I see.
So in the future, we may decide to go to a Wi-Fi module that works at 5 gigahertz, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. All right, so I just installed the driver. Oh, it's going to bring up that reference manual. Close that. So now I can go do what I wanted to do and start up Path again and then set up the driver. All right. So now the driver's available, PMC-8 telescope. I'm going to go to properties. All right, and here's the new driver. And if you look down here at the bottom, I don't know if you can see it clearly on the screen or not, but that's where the release date is right here. And it's dated 2021-04-10D Delta release, any CPU. So that's the current release. So I'm going to go ahead and connect via serial. I've got my thing configured as a G11, so that's already set. I know it's on COM6. So I'm going to set that. And the wireless port is the same. Site data, I'm going to change this to my location. Right now it's set to where Explore Scientific is at. I'm at 38 degree, 38.333, and I'm at minus 77.711. That's that configuration. Pulse guiding. The main difference on this version of the ASCOM driver compared to the previous one is that now you can set the sidereal rate fraction when you're doing pulse guiding to its own value for each axis. So if you want to control the pulse guiding tuning differently on the deck axis than you do on the right ascension axis, this is another parameter that you can use to change that. Let's say you want your deck axis to respond faster. So you would boost this up to 80, okay, instead of just 40%, something like that. All right. The other thing is that I think that's about it, that people would be interested in. There are a couple other things that I won't get in today. So that's how you set up the driver. Okay, and then you hit OK. Hit OK, and then you can hit OK. And so if you noticed, I changed that one value for the sidereal rate fraction for the deck axis to 80, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where in the profile that, let's see here, if I can get this to update. PMC-Eight telescope. I need to restart this thing. Profile Explorer. All right, go to telescope drivers, go to ASCOM ESPMC8, and there's the data for the driver. All right, now you noticed, like I said, I changed the deck value from 40 to 80. So the RA axis on the is 40 still. You can, I don't know if you can see that, Scott, or not. But if you look at the deck one, it's set to 80 in the profile now. So when you change a value in the ASCOM driver, it updates this profile. That's basically what I want to get at. So now we've got the POTH running, and I'm ready to connect, and it's configured. I'm ready to connect to the PMC-8. So I'm going to hit connect. All right, and there it came up. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but you can see all the data is on the mount right here. And one thing to look at, to notice, is typically if you remember, I set to run on boot in the right ascension axis, okay? So I turned that on and I rebooted the system, and that's what this is showing you here. You can see that the hour angle is running, and the right ascension is fixed at a value that's different than 6 hours from the local sidereal time. This is how many minutes. The difference between these two is how long the system's been running and been tracking the whole time, because it was track on boot. So that's kind of what this is showing you here. Typically, it's not tracking, and you can see the tracking flag is already on. All right, and it's unparked. Okay, so when you turn that on, it detects that it's running, and it automatically unparks it, and automatically shows you that it's tracking. So that's what that's all about. And I think that's about it. That shows you how to use these programs to get them up to date and to configure it for use with the ASCOM driver. And so once you've got it turned on and set, Explore Stars will connect to it like always. And then you can run the serial port connected with ASCOM like always, one or the other. And so
Okay.
I think
All
that's
right,
it.
So there was a lot to cover. Okay.
Yeah, it was. And I
Right?
spent half an hour or so, probably more. It was a little bit longer than I expected.
We're going to, of course, these programs get recorded afterwards. We will grab, a snippet of this program where he goes through this step by step, and you can review it. in video on the PMC-8 page. So.
Yep. And that'll be a great reference for everybody. The quick start guide goes through these basic steps, but it doesn't really explain anything. It kind of assumes a certain level of familiarity with the system if you're doing an upgrade or if you're doing an update on the firmware. I guess, Scott, I don't know if, I guess this is the case. If customers don't want to do this update themselves, they can ship their PMC-8 box to us or their iAccess 100 mount to us at their cost, and we'll upgrade it for free and send it back to them. Is that right?
We can do that.
Is that reasonable?
It's reasonable. But still, nevertheless, I mean, you know, this may not be the last time that we ever do this. And, you know, who knows what might be in the future. And the fact that you can upgrade it yourself is a big bonus.
Right. That's the main thing that we want to make sure works.
Right. You don't have to be without your gear. And, you know, so, you know, you just make it work. And typically, too, you know, being that we can, customer service reps can also connect with you on Zoom and have walk customers through it where we, you know, take control of your computer. You know,
yeah, we can do basically what I just did.
Is good.
I could have done this remotely on Scott's computer. In fact, he does need to get an upgrade on his, I think.
Right, and so that's how it'll be done. So, you know, it's yeah, you know, that's, if you really struggle with it, what I would do is I would call customer service or do a service ticket, you know, and then a rep can get on with you and make sure that you're doing everything correctly. So.
Yep, and I want to make sure, as part of that, I don't know if you can put in the notes on that video to please join the forum, also in the video links.
Sure.
And link to the forum and just as part of the description of the video when we post it.
Right.
That's really the most helpful venue overall, because we monitor that all the time. We respond to those messages, and you also get the great OpenGOTO community to respond also, which is a ton of help.
Right.
So you might get a response within 10 minutes posting it on the forum, where it might take us a half an hour to get to it, you know.
Right.
So
very possible. Well, that's good. Well, Jerry, thank you so much. And thanks to the audience. They said a lot of nice things today. It was really cool.
There weren't any questions about this. I guess everybody's just following along and understanding what was going on.
Let's see. Chalk says, he says, the reason for the queue is that I have split my Wi-Fi channel. Okay. And a lot of stuff is on 2.4, and I've isolated 5 gigahertz for Astro or VR only.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Chalk's house must be like Wi-Fi heaven.
Yeah. 250 gigabit
That's
Wi-Fi.
And, you know, Pekka wanted to reinforce the idea of making a program that would switch the buttons around depending on which side of the mount you're on and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those are things that we would put onto, you know, a feature request form. Is that feature request list still up?
Yeah, that's a separate subgroup. There's a separate subgroup that you can join for feature request, and anybody can submit a request to that. And I've kept track of it in a spreadsheet that's also posted out there. We have to go through and revisit that stuff now again, Scott. It's been probably a couple months since we looked at it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think there's been any new requests lately. There's a lot of, basically everything that people can think of is already out there. So I would admonish everybody that wants to post a request to please review the existing requests so that we don't have duplicates.
Right.
Because all that will happen is I'll look at the new request and I'll try to match it to something that's already there, and I'll delete it if it already matches something. that's what'll happen with it.
Yep.
And you know, I would be miffed if somebody deleted one of my posts. So I just want to warn people.
That's right.
But I would give an explanation for that. You know, I typically I leave a message saying this is already listed as this. Thanks for the suggestion. You know, that type of thing.
Yep.
I probably wouldn't delete it. I would just leave it at that.
Well, all right. So, thanks to everybody here that's watching today. And remember, tomorrow we've got 2 shows. We have Microcosmos, and you know, I've got new creatures here. Okay, live creatures. This one is cope pods. Okay, this one is Euglena. Okay, you can barely see them right now, right? Okay.
Euglena.
Yeah.
Have you got nicknames for
Living
these
in a
things?
green environment. Okay, I can just imagine them swimming around. You know.
Yeah. Have you got nicknames for these things?
I'll let the audience name them.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Everybody knows I'm a beginner at this microscope stuff, right? Okay, so, but I'm having fun. This is paramecium. These guys are killer, predatorial guys right here, all right? But there's, unfortunately for them, there are other things that go after them too.
The paramecium paramilitary.
And one of them is amoeba, okay? And I've got amoeba right here, so I'm not going to purposely mix them together to create any kind of, you know, warlike environment, but, you know, because maybe some of you might be sensitive to that.
There was a great, just real quick, there was a great story back in 1980s at
Yeah.
Omni Magazine. I don't know if everybody remembers Omni Magazine, but there was a short story called Sand Kings. If anybody, Sand Kings, look it up. It's an awesome story.
All right.
Sand Kings.
Sand Kings, the story. It's like microscopic stuff or what? It's a novelette by American writer George R.R. Martin, first published in August of 1979 in Omni. It won the Hugo Award for Best Novelette, the Nebula Award for Best Novelette, and the Locus Award.
Yep.
Well, it must be good. Geez.
It's an excellent story, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'll have to read it now.
Yeah, yeah.
The story follows a wealthy playboy named Simon Kress who collects dangerous exotic animals. Well, maybe so is that what I'm doing?
That's what made me think about it. That's what made me think about the Sand King story.
Okay. So, yeah, I've got these dangerous exotic animals here floating in a less than a cup full of water, okay? And you'll get to see some of them tomorrow in a thimbleful or a drop of water under our microscope. It'll be fun. You know, I'm also, as the show progresses, we're going to have people come on that are much more knowledgeable than I am about microscopes, and we'll all be learning together. But until then, oh, and one last thing, too. We have Global Star Party 41 tomorrow. Okay, I couldn't have it on Tuesday because Scott was knocked down by the Moderna vaccine. Okay, so I'm back up and ready to go at it again. So it'll be fun to have it on a Friday night, anyways. And you know, so stay tuned for that. And until that time, keep looking up, and we'll see you. Thank you. So we're going to show you the PMC-8 line in the Exos 2 and the G11 system. G11 is the classic mount made by Scott Losmandy out there in California. We've got it modified, though, with a PMC-8 system that has the stepper drives on both axes. This is a wired configuration. I have a NUC computer here running the whole system. It's running all my camera control software. It's running the SkyMap software and everything, also to run the PMC-8. In the back, we've got the telescope drive master that takes that plus or minus 5 arc seconds that Losmandy guarantees down to 1 arc second or less periodic error.
You can see I'm holding the electronic box here, and I'm going to mount that. I have a special mount that I've built where I'm going to mount it to the leg. But to show you the other parts of the telescope, we've got an Optec electric focuser that's mounted onto my ED-102 carbon fiber. I've got an ED-80 here. Now, you might think this is too much mount for these little telescopes, but I'll tell you that when we're using this out in the wind or in adverse conditions or anything, I mean,
Sound went away, Scott.